Alright, my name's Pyrrho. I've been on the internet here for many long times. I obviously know what I'm doing. And at this point, even I think that I need a haircut. But it's just that awkward stage. I'm thinking my dad was an old hippie. He passed away. I'm thinking growing it long for a couple years in honor of him. But like I just noticed in the camera, what the hell is, I don't know what's going on. Where's it all coming from? But I was going to talk about, this was interesting to me. So this guy was on Sam Cedar. Presumably you can read that, how a toxic troll army accidentally memed Donald Trump into office. And not entirely accidental, the story he tells. It's this book. I don't know anything about him. I looked into him. It says he's also a cartoonist, maybe. Anyway, it fit my loose understanding of a story. The reason I wanted to make a video about it, you can watch it yourself for the details of the deal. But what I was going to make a video, what I am making a video about, is, well, I'll comment on it a little bit, but in my own understanding of watching this stuff, like, Molyneux, I've been subscribed to him since he was just, one of the, it's an instant message. Just thinking what one makes that sound. Well, this won't take long, but, Molyneux, for example, for like 10 years or whatever, he just had hardly any subscribers and saw him build that. I forget how much of a community he had when I first saw him, but the point is, a long time before there was any turning into a white nationalist supporting Trump kind of weirdness. And the Gamergate, all of us here, we were doing other things. You couldn't help really but see it because those sorts of things intersected with the whole discussion community. The whole atheism thing and all of its steps, basically, you couldn't be doing philosophy videos and not at least get exposed to that, right? I mean, I'm just saying what we would all know, I think. So, in other words, I have my own experiences of, hey, how did that go down? But one thing I'd heard he was saying, and then I'd heard the other day, is that Anonymous started on 4chan. Now, I'm not sure I would still believe that or not, because it's more difficult than that. When you have these hacker groups, they'll use certain places, whatever is the safest space or most dangerous space, Star Wars bar kind of places on the internet, and hacker sites and things, and they'll use more than one, so their network spreads through. But, I don't know, because I heard somebody else say the same thing. I'm wondering, were some of the early messages in 4chan, and 4chan's really old then, I guess. I remember Anonymous being a group for the whatever you call the punishment of Scientology for trying to, take all these Xenu papers off of the internet. And that goes back quite a ways, right? Now, this guy says, yeah, that was the first generation of 4chan kids. And I'm not endorsing his view. I'm saying go see it. Bring your comments back and tell me what you think. Is this a true story or not? I could tell you the part that I remember, but I'm not really going to have time here. But this is more his story. My understanding of what this guy's saying. So it was Anonymous basically came out. So there's the 4chan kids, and it's kind of like life is starting to suck. There's no chance. So you get the younger generation X people starting Anonymous because we're dropping out, tuning in, living an online life. Boom. Now we could be activists and by hacking or whatever. And he says this evolved into the later Pepe ones that we dealt. And there's a couple things going on, is the turnover, because this is young, disaffected people. So the turnover in that community, but also as some of these guys could be 40 and 50, but still sort of in that mindset, whatever that mindset is he's describing, but of like being disaffected by life and fuck it, I'm not going to have a partner at these jobs. I can't, and just play video games and, eke through some way. So anyway, I didn't know. I didn't know that 4chan is what gets credit for the original anonymous movement. And then it's interesting, though, because you have a board like that where, yes, there are communities there. There's also communities that access that board. This is just always the way that it is. And then, what do you call the people that are in organizations where they use words, but they don't actually have, they don't have buildings, they don't have regular meetings, they're not funded, things like Antifa. Black Lives Matter got some structure, but then that's just people that then use that name, right? Like I could go have an Antifa coffee shop. Am I then suddenly officially Antifa? These organizations that are just nascent in words, it's just like when a white supremacist goes, or a Trump fan goes and attacks someplace. People are like, well, that's an individual. Yeah, you might have been you might have hung out on this board or that board or said this or that kind of, but it's an individual thing. And that's kind of how stuff always goes, unless you could prove a conspiracy where there's an organization where they're getting together and making plans to do these kinds of things. For example, that's how the Masons kind of fell from being able to get away with shit. I forget exactly when it was, but there was this episode where somebody had committed a murder and he was basically shuffled away, protected from the law by Masons, many of whom did not know why in the middle of the night they were supposed to help their Masonic brother. And so a lot of people didn't like being drawn into that. That isn't really why they, were Masons, and you just kind of get in these clubs and run along and do things a certain way, and it's not even till later till you know that you were part of some conspiracy or whatever. So when individuals do things like that, they can be blamed even though they didn't know what that crime was because they committed it in a conspiracy. It's like, he hid at your house. They said the law might be looking for him. You hid him underneath the cellar. It's like, yeah, but I didn't know what his crime was. Well, but you're part of the conspiracy. Well, that's lacking in a lot of these other things. All these white supremacists, they don't all know each other. They don't all have the same funding. If you have someone like David Duke funding a camp, and you could go and find out through informants or whatever that on the camp they're making a plan to go shoot a bunch of people, and then just one of them goes and does it, and you could show the emails of them discussing it, then okay, that's an organization. But we just use these organizations all the time. Like, there's some group of protesters screaming, we hate to kill all the cops. Well, that's Black Lives Matter now, right? Because some group, did they say, we're Black Lives Matter, and this is our position? And even if they did, who are they to claim being Black Lives Matter, right? Like, unless it's the Red Cross, and it's registered as a trademarked name of an organization, registered in some way, and then the funds that organization owns are being used to make plans, and the people that work in that organization are having discussions, and then they're acting on those discussions, then you can't really talk about these movements as though there's organizations behind them. What even the feminists, yeah, not all. Everybody has the different. Look, even all the racists are not on all the same team, and not all the same kind of racists, right? It's everybody. There's a variety, and if the whole world went Nazi, then there'd be a lot of Nazi infighting. Why? Because there is no monolithic block where you can go, here's what Antifa thinks, I don't want to be that anymore, here's what a white American masculinity is all about, well, I don't want to be that then. It's like, just the categories are there for people to simplify their own thinking, right? They're not intrinsic in the individual thing. Your identity is individual. It's totally unique. And I don't say that because, isn't it beautiful? No, it looks, a lot of this is disgusting. It's just shit-throwing monkeys, but every shit-throwing monkey's throwing shit for a different reason. And the ones that aren't throwing shit, they also have different reasons. And sometimes the reasons overlap in ways that are really, really surprising. But, so, yeah, I don't know. He tells an interesting story, a little bit too simple. But I'm sure a lot of the edgelords out there that might come across this video could tell me, watch this Dale Barron's story of how, how the generations of 4chan and the N-chans, what kind of a demographic they are, why there's the turnover, how could it be anonymous turning into Pepe, and I don't know, what do you think? I mean, I didn't buy his story, I just found it interesting. And we all here, I think, kind of lived through this. We all saw the rise of Sargon, the Gamergate, his Pet Boy V and things like this. We saw that all develop. So you have a first-hand thing to fit against what this guy's story is. So it's also kind of funny, Sam's take on it, because Sam was kind of oblivious to a lot of things going on in YouTube, certainly even when he was here. It was just an outlet for him. He wasn't really partaking in it. But his crew, like Matt Binder, and did. So, yeah. I mean, basically, if somebody's interested in telling me it did what? Holy cannoli. Okay, here's the thing. If I do this wrong, this should be streaming. Did I always forget to do that. And if I end it before I manage to change the settings, then there's a big, big problem. All right, here we go. There we go. Now I can stop it. All right. Probably going to do more later. If you want to be around for a session of discussion later, leave a comment in this video, and that might motivate me to actually do it. Okay, it's working.